So hi, I'm Mahesh.
Hi, I am Akshay.
So my name is Hardik.
This is for an aspiring entrepreneur who is relatively young now, trying to build their career. Well, how to think about capital? पूछ भाई.
तो यार आप Treebo में how many years has it been?
I think in August I'll complete 10.
10 years, right? And you have 10 years of insights with you
Yeah,
when it comes to hospitality as well.
sure.
And at this point of time as well, you would have so much savings as well कि अब आप चाहो तो कुछ स्टार्ट कर सकते हो. तो why इन सालों में कोई आपको वो नहीं आया यार कि यार मैं ही कुछ हॉस्पिटैलिटी में स्टार्ट कर देता हूँ. आई हैव सो मेनी इनसाइट्स एंड प्रॉब्ली यू कुड से redo Treebo in a better way, or probably you could even think of building something in the hospitality space as well, जहाँ पे probably you would have 100% equity, 100% chances of building more wealth, and the ease of excess of capital would always be there for you. तो कहीं ना कहीं why ऐसा कुछ सवाल कभी आया आपके दिमाग में, या आया या नहीं आया, तो क्यों नहीं, मतलब बिकॉज इट्स अ वेरी ऑब्जेक्टिवली इट्स यू हैव
It's a logical path forward, right? Yeah, so I think you are taking few assumptions which may not be right. That I have enough money to now not to worry about money. Obviously, I have enough to.
because money is a resource, like
Sure.
always.
But now you would, मतलब you get access to a lot of capital ना. अभी
Sure,
आपके backdrop के बाद तो मिल जाएगी ना capital.
Sure. So, question is here: why not start something with so much experience, network, etc.
maybe in hospitality itself, because the kind of you are essentially de-risking yourself.
Yeah. So, okay, let's try to. The way I look at mathematically is when you start something, irrespective of your experience, the chances to. Okay, so let's look at it in three ways. A, when you don't have the experience and you are starting something, the chances to succeed and maybe create wealth is less than 1%, 2%. When you have gained, let's say, 10 years of experience and now you start something, the chances to succeed might be 20, 30%.
Let's assume they're more higher.
Chalo,
It's not
higher than the first case. The third scenario is, let's say I continue in Treebo. Okay? And let's say I continued in Treebo for the last 10 years. Obviously, we did not do the IPO and there might be no major financial outcome yet. But if I still see mathematically the third option, where let's say if we happen to do an IPO in next 2, 3 years, 4 years maybe, and the associated wealth creation that might be possible, the chances of that happening is significantly higher as compared to the first two cases.
But still you would have the ESOP of Treebo. वो तो irrespective अगर आप लोग public में जाते हो, still you will eventually make money.
Sure. So
For that point of view,
So
probably
that-
you would lose a lot on, say, salary, or
Sure. So even in the ESOPs, Akshay, the way it works is that the grants are not constant. Or ऐसा नहीं कि it was allotted once and now it has stopped. The grants keeps happening, right? And your equity keeps increasing in the company, right? So that eventually builds up to a good equity, and then a financial outcome happens that equity can result into a windfall gains. So the chances of that happening within Treebo, if we do an IPO and if we continue the growth trajectory that we have, that probability is much higher as compared to the first two cases.
okay,
So even if I, let's say, tomorrow plan to start something hospitality, the chances for me to create a similar financial outcome, I think, would be significantly lesser.
or why not? Like thinking, probably you could build something which is a gap that Treebo would not be building because let's be honest, एक टाइम के बाद जैसे ऑर्गेनाइजेशन बड़ी होती जाती है, you cannot like venture into a lot of things that would be there because as an organization grow old, they would also want to de-risk it by
Sure.
not venturing into almost all things. Probably you could say build a business and then again sell it to Treebo,
Sure.
where you might get a bigger share swap as compared to
What I have right
ESOP.
now. Sure. Again, this is all assuming that I build, I succeed, I sell. Okay. But there are 100 if and buts involved in this entire equation, right?
But there are 100 different, but would there be in say in the next 2 years of
So that's exactly what I'm talking about. The count of if and buts in the Treebo journey to IPO and hence the outcome, financial outcome, are considerably lesser because the first 10 painful years are behind. Okay? Until unless now we significantly goof up in our strategy for next 2-3 years, the chances are reasonably higher. And yeah, because I have gone through that journey of starting twice and failing, I can tell you one thing, that it is the chances for anyone to succeed in a business should always be looked at in a long enough horizon. So let's say if I start something in hospitality, I would set the milestones at literally 3, 5, 7, 10, 15 years if I'm truly building something meaningful. 2, 3 year, 4 year here and now financial outcome is I think a too steep an expectation. And if I have to keep that expectation, better I take the Treebo route for it.
What scale would Treebo be on? जो भी public information में है.
Around 800 hotels, 120 cities, top line of 650 crores.
Okay. But even if you like with 10 years experience and probably like raising some external capital, don't you think you can probably even build a business which is say 1/10 of Treebo, which could be like say 60 crore ka annual revenue, and then probably like flipping it for even 3x,
Sure.
like 200 crore, and probably you might get that 200 crore ka share swap,
Sure.
which could potentially be a bigger incentive. Why not?
Sure. It is definitely a path. That's an option where, let's say, ex Make My Trip folks have ventured out into hospitality and are filling a white space. There are ex president of Lemon Tree, Mr. Vikramjit Singh, who was with Lemon Tree for almost, I think, 18 years. Last to last year, he started his own hotel company, Alaiva Hotels. Very similar to the brand that Treebo has launched also recently. So it is very much an option. I think it is about my conviction about running that business irrespective whether I'm able to sell it or not, because selling is not in your hands. You don't sell companies, people buy your companies, right? So if I'm able to run it, scale it, and continue to run it irrespective whether I'm getting offers or not, I think that idea is yet to come to me.
Okay.
And as I said, for me also to continue in Treebo for the last 10 years, it was a combination of me getting regular learnings, right, growth, working with very, very smart founders. So the need to start something on your own, the thrill that you get, to a large extent, I was able to get that in Treebo itself. And that never pushed me too hard to think, yaar, ab to kuch aur karne ka time aa gaya. Yes, there were difficult situations where I had to reevaluate my contributions in Treebo. But there was no, other than, let's say, a super large enough monetary outcome, which obviously even Treebo can provide maybe, right? if I have to just keep that as a center point and start something, sure, matlab, that I need to still think. But I don't think I can start with the aim to sell. I think I'll have to start with an aim to build something really meaningful, and maybe selling or IPO or a merger will be an outcome depending on that situation 4 year, 5 year, 10 year down the line.
Is that the right mindset to start something built to sell, to be sold?
But effectively, you are selling to the consumer, right? So, I think that build to sell, आप consumer को तो बेच ही रहे हो ना.
Sure.
So if you are not selling to the consumer, and then eventually it's not like there are no transactions happening. So then it's probably like research if you're not transacting, or it's not business, na?
It can be sold of आपके जैसे यार हर land की value है, whether you sell it or not, it's your prerogative. You can do a lot of things with the land. Selling is one of the options. Okay? You can create a beautiful architecture on that land, which might be a landmark for years and centuries to come by. If that is one aspiration, then that is also a right aspiration. I'm saying, जो हम बाहर भी बात कर रहे थे, if you are starting something, and because business is something which I think is still, while the conditions have become a better to run the business, to raise capital, it still needs your deep conviction to run it successfully. Okay? Now, to sell it or not sell will literally depend whether you are able to create a good enough value for your customer or not. Okay? And irrespective of that business getting sold or not, you should have the conviction to run it also irrespective. I think that is a junction when you are best placed to sell your business. But if you are in a hurry to sell, then I don't think it will happen. I think the business will die rather than getting sold. So if you are happy with what you are doing, if you are truly solving the problem at scale also for the consumer, you are not thinking 24/7 about your why am I not getting offers about my business, what's the current valuation for my business. These are some things that you should worry about some of the times, but not every time. So if your focus is towards building value for customer, for the stakeholders, keep it in a sustainable business, profitable business, I think then it's a matter of time. Whether you sell it or not sell it, you IPO it, then there are many other lucrative options available. So I don't think ये बस ये है कि day one पे build to sell. I think it's very, I don't know how to think about it. Day one पे how can someone realize कि यार let me start something which I can sell after 5 years. Incredibly यार 5 साल पहली बात तो टाइमलाइन डिफाइन करना इम्पॉसिबल है. दूसरी बात किस वैल्यू पे सेल करोगे, दैट विल ट्रूली डिपेंड अपॉन हाउ बिग अ प्रॉब्लम यू आर सॉल्विंग. See at that point in time, are there enough, is that idea still relevant enough or large enough for people to bet money on your company? In our segment, some of the deeply funded players in hospitality just made some unfortunate changes in the way people used to look at hotels, evaluate hotels, right? And that impacted all other players out there in the market, right? Which with no fault of theirs. So only thing that I'm converging towards is that selling is a decision which is impacted by a lot of internal and external factors. So all the acquisitions that you would have seen in the past, even let's say when WhatsApp was acquired, right? It was a buzz when it got acquired for 19 billion, I think 10 years ago. The founders never intended to sell. They just happened to get the offers from Microsoft, Facebook, Google, everyone, right? And when they evaluated, they see that they saw the merit, and then eventually the selling happened. So yeah, that's what I think.
The objective should be कि you should not start to sell.
Yes.
And I don't think you agree.
Yeah.
You don't agree, so give a different parallel then. Why do you think it can be started with the thought process of selling?
See, any fundament, like any business that you're creating, will have some kind of a standard differentiation from an X or Y or Z thing that already exists in the market. So, if there is no kind of a fundamental difference, probably then you won't survive. And if there is a fundamental differentiation, then there would somewhat be a consumer demand associated with the business that also you will fundamentally create. So I think selling is also a lot about creating that, drawing that value, which is some summation of both actual value and perceived value.
That you'll have to do irrespective of whether you are building to sell or building to last forever.
तो कहीं ना कहीं तो then तो even if you're building to last forever, there would be chances that you will fundamentally, अगर आप 8 रुपए डाल के 2 रुपए प्रॉफिट कमा रहे हो या 1 रुपए प्रॉफिट कमा रहे हो, हर इंडस्ट्री में कुछ ना कुछ मल्टीप्लायर तो होगा ही होगा.
श्योर बिल्कुल होगा.
तो फंडामेंटली देयर you are eventually building to sell, right?
So if your business becomes,
It's about how big risk you can take. वो 8 रुपए डाल रहे हो, 80 रुपए डाल रहे हो, या अगर आप 8 करोड़ रुपए डाल के,
irrespective of the margins, मैं कह रहा हूँ business is hugely profitable, ये मान लेते हैं, ठीक है? For us to decide to sell it or not, the business has to be first strong on fundamentals. Let's say we both started SAADAA type business on day zero. For us to scale, and let's say your intention is to sell after 5 years, my intention is to keep it for next 100 years. Okay? Now, irrespective of our aspirations, we have to create SAADAA in a manner that it is solving a problem in the industry, serving your customer well, your economics make sense, you are a profitable business.
बट वो तो गिवन ही है ना बिजनेस का.
आते हैं उस पे आते हैं. Now we had started 5 years later. Let's say we achieved this outcome. Here fundamentals are right. Let's say business is doing 100 crore in annual run rate, 10 crore of annual EBITDA, and a good 15-20% year-on-year growth. Okay? Now this is a junction where you have a liberty and a luxury to choose. Here और 100 से 1000 करोड़ रुपए लेके जाना है या 100 करोड़ के इस रेवेन्यू पे 500 करोड़ की वैल्यूएशन पे बेच देना है. नाउ दैट इज प्योरली दैट जंक्शन कॉल जो यू कैन टेक basis your condition, your mindset, your aspiration with the business. But I'm saying that mindset or that condition can't be evaluated on day zero. I think if you start कि यार no matter what I have to sell, I don't think you will reach this milestone where you are comfortably 100 CR with 10 CR of EBITDA with a 20% year-on-year growth. Then उसके बाद you have 1000 options to do. बेचो, रखो, IPO करो. But I think a lot of, and I could be wrong, by the way, I have a limited perspective. I have not seen the entire world. So maybe there are people who can actually be razor sharp focused enough to build to sell right from day zero. But what I saw, the founders that I know, so it is like, if you are driving, you have to put your eyes on the road. You can't have one eye on the road and one eye on the phone, right? If you have to reach the destination. I think similarly, if you are building the business to solve a problem, you have to first solve the problem. You can't have one eye on the problem and another on a financial outcome. I think that would lead to none of these getting achieved.
But there's a huge problem there, considering Treebo was able to raise a lot of funds.
Yeah.
That journey of raising funds, every investor is coming on board
With an intention
to liquidate,
Yes,
right? Every investor comes on board to get ROI on their capital that they invest. It's high risk capital, so their expectation of an ROI is significantly higher. Yes. Intrinsically, raising funds is fundamentally, it sits on the liability side of the balance.
Absolutely, it has to be some return.
तो अगर इन्वेस्टर देख रहा है लिक्विडिटी इवेंट,
इवन जिसको आप ESOP दे रहे हो वो भी
कहीं ना कहीं देख रहा है, तो सबके लिए कहीं ना कहीं लिक्विडिटी इवेंट इज इन देयर माइंड. So the big question is, I think that is something that is maybe inherently different between what we are doing and what मतलब maybe Treebo is going towards कि what changes considering मतलब structurally क्या चीज़ें change हो जाती हैं और वो liquidating क्योंकि अपन एक साइड बात कर रहे हैं कि the business has to be structurally done with the intention to run it longer term ideally where the focus has to be building the business fundamentally right.
Correct.
Right? But जैसे आप you get an investor on board,
Correct.
you get a lot of team members are out there to build wealth with you, and that wealth will only be built when there is a liquidation event.
Absolutely.
Selling is one part of it, maybe an IPO is another part of it, but then what do you think?
And a lot of liquidation events happen without even profitability as well. Like,
Yeah,
for example,
absolutely.
WhatsApp
Absolutely.
was pure no.
Absolutely. So if the question is that if not selling, how the liquidity will happen? So then there are various ways. IPO is one way. Because let's say if your company is 100 crore revenue, 10 CR, EBITDA, your IPO is going to be a blockbuster IPO, by the way, right? So there everyone makes money, right? And not just during the event, you make money consistently after that, right? So that is
हुआ क्या?
Unicommerce में हुआ है भाई. Unicommerce is a very good example, pure SaaS revenue.
So that is one. So that is one type of.
सब होगा समय के साथ.
That is one type of an event. With funding rounds, there are internal liquidations also where you give exit to few investors, few early employees. Third is you distribute your profits. Let's say if you are a 10 CR annual EBITDA company, why to keep it to yourself? Distribute 50% of it annually to your, let's say, to the team. Create wealth for them, not just via one event, but every year. Link their annual, maybe some sort of employee benefits in terms of profits of the company, just like large companies give out dividends. So that is another way of creating wealth for the employees, right? Entire outright selling to hey that, but again, usme bhi yaar, selling at the right value will create wealth for everyone. Otherwise, that liquidation preference will not let the value flow to the last stakeholder. Right? So selling at the right valuation is the key, and I think for that to happen, the business has to be fundamentally very strong.
Yeah, the negotiation has to be when they want to buy and not really.
Exactly. So, but you are right. Liquidation is going to be the primary, I think, expectation from a lot of employees because they are not willing to stay for next 50 years, right? They let's say worked hard for 4 or 5 years. They have some equity. They want to know how soon, when, how much, right? So for that, those interim funding rounds could be the way. Another way is you link the outcomes, performance outcomes to really steep incentives. That let's say, for example, if in a particular sales team you end up delivering 3x of your target, you get some jaw-dropping, insane amount of money on that outcome. That's a liquidation event for that employee, right? So, by the way, liquidation event in itself is very subjective from person to person. For someone earning 3 LPA, for him a 10 lakh rupee amount is also a windfall, right? Versus let's say for someone else, a 10 CR would be a benchmark. Yeah, इससे कम तो फिर क्या ही मतलब है, right? So
while moving from Bangalore to Jaipur, what contrast have you seen here while kind of with the limited interactions you would have with maybe people beyond us too?
Yeah, so I think first of all, moving here was a complete, it's a turnaround from Bangalore to Jaipur. It's a complete world, I'll say.
Then if you had to start, probably would you do it from Jaipur or would you do it from Bangalore?
Yeah, so Bangalore is very close to heart and Jaipur is home. Okay, so it's a difficult choice. And thanks to Indigo's thrice in a day connectivity.
ये तो हो गया एक बीवी एक girlfriend.
I think I'll start from Jaipur, hands down. I don't think there is any question about it.
Trust the wife.
Trust the wife, yes. As if I had any other option. But being very close to Bangalore, the vibes that Bangalore gives as a city, and I think the kind of people that Bangalore has attracted for the last few years is just insane. It's just insane. For for anyone who is truly inclined to build something meaningful is someone looking for right people, right ideas, right culture, right mindset. Bangalore and Bangalore people to a large extent solve for it. Yes, there are challenges now. The ask of people have become very, very steep. It's very expensive to hire people from Bangalore.
And if you had to like probably choose, irrespective of say Bangalore or Jaipur, I mean a lot of it depends on what idea also. you
Yeah,
start on,
absolutely.
but, like if you had to like probably rank your quality of life as one to choose on starting out a business, irrespective of the nature of business, what would it be?
See, again, I think to a large extent it depends on the nature of business. See, for example, if I am a trader, stock market trader, and I want to start a broking company, then maybe Bangalore makes sense because I don't have to step out very often. Okay. And I get to enjoy being in Bangalore. The biggest problem Bangalore is roads, right? Your traffic, your the time that city takes. But if that is not going to be the major part of your schedule, then maybe starting out from Bangalore is not a challenge. But if you are building where you have to step out or you have to travel a lot, then I think it's not even a question. Jaipur is the answer.
But then the right question is, considering you're coming to that conclusion, how does someone evaluate where to start that business? Because we've already come to the conclusion that where do you work or where do you start your business is very important. So what would be the top 3 criteria?
Yeah, actually, it's a very interesting question because if I look back 10 years,
Yeah.
figure out how the journey panned out. By the way, I went to Bangalore with 40, 35, 40K in the account with the clear intention of यार देखो अगर नहीं हुआ
हाँ.
तो रिटर्न टिकट के पैसे हैं और जयपुर में 2-3 महीने और मैं रेंट सकता हूँ उतने पैसे हैं आई विल फिगर आउट समथिंग राइट दैट वाज द इंटेंशन आई वेंट टू बैंगलोर but when I came to Bangalore I realized that and when the journey started and when I look back your place from where you are working just changes everything.
Correct.
Right? And hence I think it's a difficult call. See, quality of life, if you keep that as a primary metric for yourself, because see, this metric may also depend from person to person.
But ideally for someone to evaluate where to start the business, considering that's the primary goal, कि business start करना है, तो what would be the top 3 factors when they choose that location?
Sure. Yeah, I think if the primary aim is to start the business, they should first see the people they want to hire, how frequently they need to travel, if they value quality of life. So let's say for me as a founder, so let's say if I talk about me, let's say if I start a business today, for me, let's say the quality of life for me, my wife, my father is very, very important. Okay? And hence, maybe for me, Jaipur is a natural choice. Okay? So that's the first line of the code. Everything would be written after it. Will hinge around the decision. Okay? Now, for someone else where family responsibility is not there, very early in the marriage, for example, has a flexibility to change cities often, no commitments. So I think then it should be based out where you will get the right people to work with. If you have to interact with them physically. Okay. But if it is going to be again something you are building
Remote,
a tech
huh?
product, it's remote, you are going to hire engineers from US, Vietnam, Japan, etc., then again I think peace of mind trumps everything else. Because I think in building the business, it is an excruciatingly difficult emotional journey also. It is not just you are solving a problem by applying your skill set, your expertise, your perspective. That is, I think, just one small part of the equation. Your emotional turmoil that you will go through, your physical health turmoil that you will go through, which will also eventually impact whether you are able to build a business or not, should be taken into consideration, in my opinion. And at least for me, that would define Jaipur as a starting point.
Considering you started from Jaipur, would you agree with that? Because isn't the location, the starting conclusion was that the location matters a lot more. Where you start has a significant impact.
Correct. Yeah, but one thing I'll say that is still relevant. And let's say if I happen to start something from Jaipur, and when I'm in Jaipur still here and working with Treebo, I still have a FOMO. Here, Bangalore being Bangalore, right? There are events that I'm missing. There are office interactions that I'm missing. Interacting in a room with so many intelligent people, I'm missing out, right? So my inclination is to travel a lot often, which let's say was not possible 10, 12 years ago because flights were limited, expenses the rates are quite high.
And might not happen when you are starting out also,
right? But now, if I have to start and if I have to remove this barrier, here I'll not be able to be in touch with Bangalore, is no more a challenge.
That's why you think Jaipur is
Yes, because I will bake that calculation in the business plan. Here, twice in a week travel to Bangalore will cost this much, and hence this is a part of business expense. He has asked a question.
वापस बोलना ना.
You have started from Jaipur, but you started by saying कि नहीं, where you work or where you start your business makes a very big difference. Considering that is a parallel to draw, do you think you should have, do you feel FOMO as well, like him, to go and start it in Bangalore or a place like Bombay? Because that makes a big difference. The quality of team makes.
I've been to Bangalore and I've been to Bombay both. दोनों बार गरीबी फील हुआ यार, क्योंकि if you kind of rank की given एक basic quality of life होना चाहिए to do irrespective of what you start. I think going to a city there where probably you are not aware of. So for me, ऐसा नहीं है कि I've not. It cannot be done, but probably if I am at this kind of phase of life, I would want to kind of probably build something, maybe from Jaipur as well, given the fact that there are so many things that the things are closer, you are close with the family, and like you could obviously like retain good talent as well.
So again,
grown from Jaipur.
Ease of living and let's say family. So let's say if we have to literally break it down into clear bullet points. Proximity to family, friends and family.
Yeah.
Travel within the city.
Yeah.
Maybe talent at a reasonable cost and not a sky high cost. These are the three primary factors which will help you choose and drill down on a final city. Now, if let's say that happens to be Jaipur, but you know that, let's say if you ignored these three for now and you would have started from Bangalore, do you think the outcome of SAADAA would have been different by now?
100%, 100%. 100%. I actually disagree with you guys, because if someone is starting out, the more important part is whom are you working with and the land of opportunity you get. Simple example, yaar, India ki, I think more than 50% of, if you wanted to raise capital, you goes to a place like Bangalore. So that context of understanding कि आप किन लोगों के साथ काम करोगे, क्या size of opportunity और क्या level of opportunity आप unlock कर सकते हो, matters ना. There is a reason why Bay is Bay, like जो financial Bay area है, वहाँ पे क्यों होता है वो? क्योंकि very few people are so, very smart people, few people are so agile to do something new and they are on the edge of, let's say, invention there. कुछ ना कुछ ऐसा नया कर देते हैं जो शायद कोई सोच भी नहीं रहा है. कहीं ना कहीं क्या, that delta is so significant कि अगर आप, if you are starting out, I think anyways you are supposed to accept the fact कि quality of life कुछ नहीं होगी जब आप start करोगे, and it's a hard journey to take. So the point is, if that is the real outcome you are trying to drive, then where matters a big difference. अगर हम लोग आज बैंगलोर होते, yes, there is a cost, मतलब problem that we have a cost arbitrage here, we have a beneficial cost arbitrage here. वो शायद नहीं होता, but the quantum opportunity from building the right team, creating the right ecosystem, or unlocking more things from a perspective of branding, marketing, whatever, makes a big difference.
But don't you think that by virtue of being in Jaipur, you and maybe the team tried even more to ensure that arbitrage can be reduced to negligible, and the outcome are still relatively same?
It's a trade-off. I think you have to think about it as a trade-off. A tier 2 city will give you, let's say, a better quality of life in some capacity, and probably a far better P&L cost arbitrage कि आपको शायद उतना खर्चा ना करना पड़े, रेंट इज चीपर, क्योंकि आप डिलीवर, जैसे हम ई-कॉम कर रहे हैं तो ई-कॉम में डिलीवर तो कहीं पे भी कर सकते हैं, कहीं से भी, बट the opportunity cost there is that you, मतलब है ना, for example, recruiting the right people is significantly more difficult. Access to the right kind of mindset is sometimes different. यहाँ पे जो cultural,
It's also very expensive there.
I agree, but then that's what I'm saying. There is a cost arbitrage here.
Sure.
But trade-off ये है ना कि आप वहाँ पे मतलब है ना, you can probably build.
But are we talking about just pure e-commerce here? Like,
No, any industry. I think generally major industries में ये delta आएगा ही आएगा.
So the question started with, let's say, SAADAA in Bangalore 5 years from now versus SAADAA in Jaipur 5 years from now.
but अगर उसको अपन वैसे सोचें, like अगर से rationally अगर हर business का on a P&L level, like up 10 to 15% you are investing on human capital and kind of office वगैरह etc. It's still, unless मतलब from a, अगर वो एक इंडस्ट्री होती कि जैसे मान लो बैंगलोर में हम लोग मेंस ही कर रहे हैं, वहाँ पे मेंसवेयर की एक इंडस्ट्री है जहाँ पे कॉग्स इज मे बी 35% ऑफ द बिजनेस, एंड वहाँ पे 3-4% का भी डेल्टा आए, तो मेरे को लगता है देन प्रॉब्ली इट वुड बी अ मोर लाइक अ बिगर वेरिएबल.
नहीं, एक्चुअली मैन्युफैक्चरिंग वाइज और जितने भी ये वेरिएबल्स हैं, जो रियल अपॉर्चुनिटी कॉस्ट है वो इकोसिस्टम और लैंड ऑफ अपॉर्चुनिटी है, इन द सेंस चाहे वो मुझे फंड रेज करना हो, चाहे मुझे XYZ मार्केटिंग अनलॉक करनी हो. फॉर एग्जांपल, किसी को आज क्यों कोई हर कोई जिसको जो क्रिएटर बन गया बॉम्बे क्यों जा रहा है? तो जयपुर से भी क्रिएटर था ही ना, बॉम्बे क्यों जा रहा है? बिकॉज द लैंड ऑफ अपॉर्चुनिटी इज डिफरेंट, थिंग्स दैट यू कैन डू देयर इज डिफरेंट, एंड द क्वांटम ऑफ पीपल, लाइक द टाइप ऑफ पीपल यू कैन प्रॉब्ली एम्पायर. हर कोई इंसान नहीं आ पाएगा ना.
See, Bombay is effectively having the industry there. Like
एग्जैक्टली राइट, इकोसिस्टम, वही तो बोल रहा हूँ, इकोसिस्टम मैटर्स.
unless अगर आप कोई चीज कर रहे हो जिसमें इंडस्ट्री का, अब जैसे फॉर एग्जांपल अब व्हाट्सएप होता, आई डोंट थिंक इट वुड, someone is building like a business in communication, it is not like an industry dependent, then it could be like,
But then there is a reason why na technology, because the quality of people, you need to be that agile and grow that fast. You need the right kind of people, and I think that's the primary resource. And then beyond it, you need great access to capital, you need a great market, and you need so many things for you to succeed. क्योंकि आपका variable कितना कम है. Reality है जो other outside factors that impact your business are significantly higher, and it's been proven significant a lot of
Let's
times.
look at this question in this way. By being there in the land of opportunities and making it out big is an obvious path.
Makes sense.
That is indisputable. Okay. Can it be replicated by the other cities like Jaipur with the same outcome? So while it would have not happened so far, and you think कि यार Bangalore होते तो शायद outcome कुछ और होता, but if you have to see the next 5 years of SAADAA, can you make that arbitrage zero?
I think that would be an unrealistic thing to say.
it's very subjective as well.
नहीं, फॉर आर इंडस्ट्री ऑल्सो आई थिंक इट्स अनरियलिस्टिक टू से. अपनी इंडस्ट्री के लिए भी अनरियलिस्टिक है वो चीज़ करना, बिकॉज ऐसा होता तो फिर बैंगलोर जीरो कर देता ना सैन फ्रांसिस्को बेस से. मतलब वाई वुड इट नॉट हैव मर्ज्ड इट, कंसिडरिंग एवरीथिंग हैज़ बीन डन टू. आज हैदराबाद में इतना ज़्यादा इन्वेस्टमेंट हो रहा है, एवरीवनस ट्राइंग टू डू इट, व्हाई?
Mahesh, which is I think you are discounting from the equation is that you guys have built business in a manner where it's a dream for a lot of entrepreneurs, right? That and no social, no tantebaji of any VC, right? You are on your own bosses, no equity liquidation, uh, uh, and you are reinvesting your profits, right? Achieving at this state of business itself proves that the arbitrage has been lowered already.
Arbitrage is lower, 100% lower, yes, and it is, मतलब that pace is decreasing, वो arbitrage कम हो रहा है,
Exactly, right? I'm saying.
but हाँ
अब मान लेते हैं 5 साल पहले आपने बैंगलोर स्टार्ट किया था.
हाँ
What if by the virtue of being very expensive people over there, very expensive office rent, community of a lot of, let's say, जो यहाँ पर आपने जो बना पाए in your office, the type of community that you were able to build, that those factors are hard to incorporate in the PNL over there. But don't you think that would have also played a
I
role?
think you, depending on where you are, you would choose your path, right? We chose the path of bootstrapping the business because we knew fundamentally D2C is not a bleeding business. It's a unit metric positive business. Second big part was we knew we were here. We had access to great supply chain. Indian ethnic wear में बहुत important है जयपुर. तो क्या है, seeing all of these aspects, we made a choice to continue here and not go to a place like Bangalore, which we feel from a broader zoomed out view is the right call. But if depending on what you are doing, and अगर आपकी location, अगर मैं if my location was primarily only Bangalore and then I would do that, then it is logical for me to think about what will happen considering the location. But then my pace of growth might be different.
Sure.
Like we can see एक simple parallel draw कर लेते हैं. There are, you know, there is a company like Mokobara also. There is a company like, there is a D2C brand like Soul Store also out of Bombay, which has grown rapidly. ऐसा नहीं है ना, सबकी ग्रोथ अलग है. SNH भी तो बैंगलोर से कर रहा है. It's a story to see, right? कहीं ना कहीं they've done exceptionally well.
Like minimalist has done it. See,
Sure.
तो वो it's a trade off what you choose depending on what business you are in and what makes sense to you. But अगर अपन encapsulatedly दोनों चीज़ों को side by side रखते तो then being in Bangalore has more opportunity while the cost arbitrage is better in Jaipur or a place in a tier 2 city.
But let's say if you have to conclude it and let's say give advice to a 24-year-old just starting out entrepreneur who values quality of life to some extent, not a very large extent, but to some extent, would you suggest taking a bet on a tier 2 city versus tier 1?
Yes, because the right question here is not whether you would choose tier 2, tier 1. The right question is, see, whenever you start a business, the fundamental goal or the primary goal is for you to survive and eventually make that happen.
Yes.
मैंने बोला मुझे X चीज़ अचीव करनी है तो मुझे वो आउटकम ड्राइव करना है. अब मुझे आउटकम ड्राइव करने में अगर if I am able to do it via the tier 2 city with the right structure, then there is no reason for you to not do it.
So, see, that is exactly the question. It would obviously pose some challenge. Tier 1 has some real clear ecosystems, fundamentals in place, right? But we still have to, and we are also seeing that tier 1 cities to a large extent are becoming too expensive to live.
True, high inflation is extremely high, urban inflation extremely high.
Etc. So it is also unhealthy to live to some extent.
Yeah.
Now, considering all of this, to start from a tier 2 city becomes even more natural.
True.
I also want to deliver that outcome, right? Because business start kar rahe hain to deliver an outcome. What would it need?
What would it need?
Still make it happen from a tier 2.
I think just the one of the primary aspects would be कि beyond the natural fundamentals कि आप right mindset से घुस रहे हो, आप XYZ कोई भी कौन सी industry choose कर रहे हो, कौन सा market choose कर रहे हो. One is having clear understanding that building the right team is one of the primary ingredients to.
Right.
So making sure you get the best people on board. And अभी बहुत reverse migration हुआ है कोविड के बाद, जिस वजह से it is better, मतलब I think that is an inflection point that has happened in the last 5 years. शायद कोविड नहीं होता तो और ज़्यादा बड़ा डेल्टा था. That has also played a very big element there. उसके beyond, I think beyond trying to build the right team, you have to realize that you have a cost arbitrage, and be more conscious about and being more frugal. I think because every time you start a business, again you have to survive, and then as you grow, the objective has to be that the risk has to automatically reduce. With every stage of growth, your risk has to reduce in the business. अगर risk कम होते जा रहा है, and क्योंकि आपके पास cost arbitrage है, तो you just have to be consciously more frugal.
Sure.
और ऐसा नहीं अब पैसा नहीं आ रहा है tier 2 में. If you want to raise funds, it's possible.
Sure.
तो if quality of life is a very important element, then starting for a tier 2 is not a bad idea. Considering, but the right thought process, if I had to say one single element to point out, is trying to build the right team. सबसे important मुझे लगता है वो है.
First principle thinkers would be,
Sorry.
probably like an army of first principle thinkers.
Sure. See, I think the skill set तो अक्षय I think clear है कि क्या required होगा, but the point is क्या वो tier 2 में मिलेगा?
क्यों नहीं मिलेगा यार?
They would have also gone to Delhi, Bombay, Bangalore.
इसको actually
Not all.
There would be some.
Not all. Sure. But जो भी remaining है वो आपके कल्चर में फिट है, आपकी कॉम ब्रैकेट में फिट है, आपकी एक्सपर्टीज जो आपको चाहिए उसमें फिट है.
इसको एक्चुअली पिवट करते हैं ना सिंपल इसमें कि फॉर एग्जाम्पल हम लोगों ने जयपुर से स्टार्ट करा. वी हैव अ लॉट ऑफ कॉन्टेक्स्ट ऑफ जयपुर, राइट? यू हैव बीन टू बैंगलोर, यू हैव सीन ट्रीबो ग्रो फ्रॉम लेट्स से 0 to 500 करोड़, 500 करोड़ हो गए तो 500+ करोड़ एज अ बिजनेस. वहाँ पे आप लोगों ने, क्योंकि देर इज आई नो फॉर अ फैक्ट कि Treebo has gone through a journey where it was in fierce competition with OYO, and then that time restructuring the PNL was important. तो आप लोगों ने और बहुत सारा business आप लोगों ने remote कर लिया.
Sure.
तो बहुत सारी hiring tier 2 से करी होगी.
Correct.
आपने फर्क देखा होगा दोनों का.
Absolutely.
तो what do you think is a very significant difference in trying to build the team there, मतलब दोनों side, and what has been your learning that would give an interesting insight? Like hiring from a tier 1 place where someone has relevant experience, again relevant experience, but hiring from a tier 2 place.
So actually the insights are mixed. Hard to reach a conclusion on those insights. We have seen some phenomenal talent coming from tier 2, tier 3 cities of the India. Some of our very good folks in tech marketing are based out of Jaipur, by the way. A lot of our customer success, inbound sales executives are based out of Far East, Srinagar, Kanyakumari, really remote towns, and they're doing phenomenally well. Then there are
Totally depends on the job function, is what you are saying.
See, I'm just trying to figure out the right pattern in these tier 2 hiring that we did.
सबसे क्लियर डिफरेंस क्या लग रहा है अगर आपने, क्योंकि हायरिंग दोनों साइड
सबसे पहला डिफरेंस दैट इट वाज सरप्राइज दैट वी कुड फाइंड सच अ गुड टैलेंट इन सच अ रीजनेबल compensation.
So there is a cost arbitrage. ठीक है. और
ठीक है, and that's also a learning कि यार ऐसा नहीं है कि है ही नहीं, there is a lot of talent. ठीक है, tier 2 tier 3 तो वो belief change हो गया. So now we are very much open to that path. Second year, I think we would still like to. So okay, let me club tier 2 tier 3 cities and tier 2 tier 3 colleges into same bucket.
Okay.
ठीक है, because tier 1 cities and maybe tier 1 colleges are playing the role of are, let's say, driving the cost up. ठीक है, now if you are hiring someone from tier 1 college from tier 2 tier 3 city, the cost would go down because people also expect compensation basis what city they are in. I think the ask also goes down,
Cost of living wise.
and hence their ask on compensation also relatively goes down. B, if you have identified a way to hire right talent from tier 2 tier 3 colleges irrespective of the city, then I think you have hit a gold mine, because then you have got a good talent at a very reasonable cost both in tier 1 and tier 2. ठीक है, so okay, in tier 2 tier 3 cities, tier 1 colleges are anyways quite less. Like in Jaipur there is no IIT, in Jaipur there is no IIM, right? But in Jaipur there are a lot of MNITs हैं, but there are other good colleges in Jaipur. So if you are able to hire people from there and groom them to the level that you want to take, I think this becomes a great recipe for success for a business and for the individual life. So it's a mixed reaction, to be honest, uh, Mahesh. It's hard to pinpoint because it also plays a role कि आपने किस background से hire किया था, किस comp पे किया था.
तो इसको पिवट ऐसे कर देते हैं ना कि जब आप टीयर 1 जब टीयर 2 से हायर कर रहे थे,
हाँ,
तो ऐसा क्या ट्रेड देखा आपने जो टीयर 1 में नहीं था, ऐसा क्या टीयर 1 में ट्रेड देखा जो शायद टीयर 2 में आपको मिला नहीं और ज्यादा मुश्किल था ढूंढना?
got it. Yeah, I think we found a lot of. Okay, we found deep ownership mindset in tier 2, tier 3 cities.
Okay, that is very surprising.
Yes. People were simple, their asks were simple, they were willing to put in a lot more effort, and they were a lot more hungrier to stick around and grow rather than from a tier 1 where the opportunities are too many. There is always someone else who can pay you additional 5,000 rupee a month. But the loyalty and the chances of stickiness goes down significantly. And I think with this, obviously, ownership mindset also goes down significantly. So this is one thing that we observed. And in general, we found people very humble in tier 2 tier cities as compared to tier 1.
Okay.
They had lesser. They were easily moldable, like with the evolving business asks, with let's say increasing responsibilities, not very clear. Yeah, in startups it is very hard to define a very clear cut KRAs, right? क्या इसके beyond आपको कुछ नहीं करना होगा. It is a lot fluid, right? So that was easier in tier 2 as compared to tier 1.
तो टीयर 2 आपको लग रहा है ओनरशिप लेवल्स आर बेटर.
And by the way, let me add a very important point which I have personally seen myself missing out, Treebo missing out, and a lot of other startups are missing out, which we eventually have now fixed. Hiring is just 20% of the hiring problem or a talent problem. I think 50% is how you groom that talent in the first 3 to 6 months.
right direction.
The remaining 20% is how do you continue to add value in that person's life. If you are thinking unilaterally, yeah, is this person important for my business or not? I don't think that is.
It's about giving to them.
It is given, which is I think a missing point in the era we live in, where in order to make the P&L better, we have to take some harsh calls very often. Yeah, on people cost.
So how do you decide who to give?
Sorry.
How do you decide who to give?
Who to give as a?
मतलब क्योंकि आप first 3 months में probably you are investing virtually time on everyone
Yeah.
whom you are hiring and
Yeah.
grooming, and probably if there would be scenarios when things won't work out.
Yeah. So here
There would be chances where you would want to kind of 3 महीने की जगह में भी 6 महीने लगे हैं, 1 साल लगे हैं.
So here, my personal experience is, Akshay, that you will start to see right signals, by the way, right from the very first month. You build upon signals. ठीक है? Because see, the actual talent आने में हो सकता है 6 महीने, 7 महीने, 1 साल भी निकल जाए. But if that person has right intent and ownership, that gap can be lowered significantly. And by the way, that gap will not even matter. So for example, let's say for field sales, we say कि यार देखो communication skills play a very important role. ठीक है? Because you have to meet with so many people, admins, build relationship. But we also realize that people with bad communication skills, but a lot more hunger to deliver their daily numbers, monthly numbers, are able to overcome that gap and still outperform the people with good communication skills, right? So, and that is visible, by the way, from first month itself. So let's say we have hired 20 and we have to now place a final bet on 10. Along with some objective metric, it would be a subjective incorporation also on how, let's say, for example, how did they react when they got a query on a Saturday evening or a late night, or let's say their client faced a severe quality escalation. Were they just okay to let it go because managing escalation is not their job description. Bringing sales was the job description. But were they ready to go one step forward, save that client, and then maybe pass it on to the relevant team? Or at least for that one query which came on Saturday evening, they took the effort to create that query, save that client, and then later inform the team care form a process for Saturday evening coverage also. I think that guy is a clear cut go ahead for me in terms of the right guy to retain. Versus someone कि यार fuck मैं तो 6-7 साल को फोन भी नहीं उठाऊंगा.
बड़ा क्वेश्चन है कि would you let go of the other person?
So yeah, it depends upon the PNL. So if my PNL can accommodate only 10, and so then I have to choose a.
अपन इसको सिंप्लीफाई कर देते हैं. आपके पास पीएनएल में भी अपॉर्चुनिटी है, ठीक है. लेट्स फॉरगेट अबाउट द कॉस्ट ऑफ दिस. आपके पास यू हैव टू सिमिलर पीपल. वन इज यू नो दैट वन हैज़ मोर हंगर, प्रॉब्ली द अदर वन हैज़ लेस ओनरशिप. बट क्या कहीं ना कहीं वुड यू स्टिल गो आउट एंड मतलब वुड यू कीप द अदर पर्सन whom यू आर नॉट कॉन्फिडेंट कि वो उस लेवल पे हंग्री है, उस लेवल पे ओनरशिप ले रहा है, तो वुड यू लेट गो ऑफ दैट पर्सन? वुड यू चूज द हायर फास्ट फायर फास्टर अप्रोच?
Yeah, I will.
Does Treebo do that?
So yeah, Treebo में we don't have such margin to have 20 people as an experiment.
नहीं तो जिनसे करते हो उनमें तो करते होगे.
हाँ, so yeah, we are very performance linked outcomes in KRAs everywhere, and that's one thing I like about Treebo a lot. It doesn't matter whether how close I am with Sid over the last 10 years. It doesn't matter. My KRA speaks and my outcomes speak. If those are in place, everything is fine. So let's say if I have to start something today. Now again, irrespective whether I have budget or not, one thing that is very clear over the last 10 years is that the type of people you have in the org are the major driving forces of the outcome of the business. Okay? So I will not experiment with people who are half hungry or are showing poor intent, poor ownership, because you can't teach intent. You can't teach ownership. So rather, if I have a budget for 2, I can only hire one guy with great ownership. I think I'll bump up the comp of that guy to 1.5x because then the cost is not a concern for me. That is a better bet, and that has played out phenomenally well for Treebo in the past, where one right person is actually doing the work of supposedly 4 to 6 people, not just at an individual level, at a managerial level also. Just imagine how much that saves the cost for the business, and that's a great outcome for that person. That person would have gone significantly over the past few years.
No, growth comes at that is there, that the growth will come with more input.
Yes.
But considering the world we live in today, where people are looking at, I think beyond growth also, people are looking more towards, work-life balance,
Yeah.
or just self-learning. That way, does that impact the level of input that you see from people? Considering this has been an ongoing debate globally, Gen Z wali cheez ki Gen Z mein you want to...
I can stare at my wife for the entire weekend. So not that. So yeah,
He's
it's,
smiling. Getting
I
that
said, so
signals.
if you're not here, I said I can stare at you for the entire weekend. Okay, thank. I got the heart.
Green signal मिल गया.
Yeah, so I think this is a controversial bit that Tushar was looking forward to. Ki, how will you strike a work-life balance with all these inputs that we are seeking?
मुझे नहीं लग रहा Treebo कर पा रहा.
Yeah, so what? Okay, so over the first 4 years were very chaotic
For Treebo.
for Treebo, for people within Treebo. Like for me, there was no distinction between a weekday and a weekend for the first 4 years, right? But from 5th year, 6th year, 7th year, when things started to stabilize a bit, we got hang of the things. Right processes, people, tools were in place. Then came here. There is a separation of weekday, weekend. You can relax a bit over the weekend. Then gradually you can actually end the day around 7:30 without being worrying about something will break. So that has started to happen from 5th year onwards in Treebo, and all the people managers, they try their best to at least maintain this basic level of segregation in work life balance. कि यार weekend पे जब तक कुछ फटेगा नहीं, परेशान नहीं करेंगे, और beyond 7:30 again, जब तक which is not here and now, which can't wait till tomorrow, we will not bug people unnecessarily. So that is a distinction we are able to draw. But your question is still very much valid, where will we ask people to deliver more, and will it take a toll on their work-life balance? I think yes.
Considering someone is starting out.
Yes. By the way, so here's an interesting, I think, my learning over it. From that person perspective also, if he is willing to learn, I think he should, or he or she should also blur that aspect to some extent. It shouldn't be a forceful mechanism from the, let's say, an employer side. Let's say, for example, in my case, and a lot in Treebo's case, the choice or the, let's say, a mandate to, let's say, work over a weekend was not enforced by Treebo. It was a conscious choice, right? And then that became a habit, and then that percolated to other people also in the company. That helped me, and a lot more, many more. Now to the question that is there a possibility to still have that level of commitment, ownership, and we can still maintain work-life balance? Maybe yes, why not? If you are great at prioritization, if you are great at time management, you don't procrastinate for random reasons, I think why not?
But like, okay, so think about it this way. Now, when you try to get people who are considering the new generation that is coming in, this has been an ongoing debate globally, or मतलब बहुत ज़्यादा आ रहा है कि the newer generation is not looking at blurring those lines.
Correct.
And then secondly, but still, I think the expectation from the employer is significantly higher. मतलब ऐसा नहीं है ना कि expectation कम हो रही है, quality of life expectation is higher, everything is higher. Do you see that trend in Treebo, and then how do you solve for it? Considering that is a challenge that all new entrepreneurs will also face, as they will work with younger people, and that is a challenge in itself, because fundamentally expecting someone to work as hard as you when you are an entrepreneur is unrealistic, because they are not chasing the outcome that you are.
Correct.
And their upside is not as big as yours.
Correct.
That is very clear.
Absolutely.
Right? So how do you balance that is the big question. And then considering the new world, how do you think about it?
Correct. Actually, very, very interesting question. This is something that generally keeps going in my mind almost every day when we are in middle of hiring discussions. I think the choice to work hard is obviously dependent upon the outcome. For a founding team, or let's say for senior folks, it might be monetary outcome now because they have stuck around for very long. But for someone starting out new, for him or her, the outcome could very well be steep learning curve. So I think that is something that we look forward into people when we hire for critical roles. Now to your question, that work-life, blurring the line in work-life balance, depends upon which role we are hiring. For junior roles, where we are okay to hire freshers, where we are actually getting Gen Zs now, there we don't expect them to demonstrate an incredible high level of ownership, because it is a very steep ask. Their processes, the work, the KRAs are fairly well planned and thought through, that if they do it properly from 10 to 7, they need not to extend. And we don't expect them to extend. Okay? But as you grow up in the hierarchy, that expectation changes.